ज्ञानानन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome to our Saturday and Sunday discussion on exploring Raganuga Bhakti. So we have been quite elaborately discussing especially the concept of Raganuga Bhakti. And if you see, we are very carefully and quite elaborately discussing how exalted is this practice of Raganuga Bhakti, which is part of Sadhana Bhakti. And what is the qualification? We have been many classes discussing the adhikar to practice Raganuga Bhakti. And we saw this qualification is lobh. And what is this real greed? So few classes we discussed quite a bit with a lot of analysis from the work of Shivram Swami Maharaj and even Raghavatma Chandrika about what is this real greed, intense spiritual greed. And in the last class, we began the discussion on the practices of a Raganuga Bhakta. And we first discussed, I told that there are only 3 verses which speak about the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. And last class we spent almost entire one class on this one verse. Krishnam smaram janam ichasya preshtam nija samahitam tat tat katha rataschasyo kuryad vasam vraje sada. So these are the 4 elements of Raganuga practice, that Krishna smaran, we remember Krishna and his associates who are very, very dear to him according to our mood, and those katha we hear and we reside either physically or mentally in Vraja. So we saw the Vishwanath Chakra Thakur and Shivram Swami Maharaj explanation how Smaranam is one of the most important limbs in Raganuga Bhakti, and Smaranam cannot happen without the purification of the heart. And here we saw these 5 stages of Smaranam. Remembrance, Shravana Dasha, Varana Dasha, Smaran Dasha, which has sub 5 divisions, Apana Dasha and Sampati Dasha. And how this succession happens from these 5 stages, we read from Shivram Swami Zori's work. 2 additional slides here I have added just to give you some indication. Uh, the stages of Raganuga and after. Shravan is hearing pastimes of Raja. Varan is getting Siddha Dev from a guru. We'll come to what is the Siddha Dev. Smaran is practicing Siddha Dev. This is Ruchi and Asakti. And the 5 stages in Smaran we go through, and at Apana stage, we attain Bhava stage. And Sampati is leaving the body, or we attain Prema stage. So this is how the stages within Raganuga Bhakti take us from Nishta to Ruchi to Asakti, then Bhava, and then Prema. And if you see the 9 stages of Bhakti correlating with the 5 stages of remembrance in Raganuga, we have Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, and we Sadhu Sangha, we start hearing, we do Shravan, we are in Shravan Dasha. But this is what I had called as unsteady hearing. But as we hear for many, many years, then all the doubts and truths about Krishna become cleared. So our hearing becomes steady. So when the hearing becomes steady, from Shravan Dasha, when we reach the stage of Nishta, we come to the Varan Dasha, where we are purified to take up to Raganuga practice. So the Shravan Dasha is a long period. In fact, at least sometimes devotees say it is 10 to 15 years we should continuously hear. But now at this stage of Nishta, the hearing is more specific about pastimes of Krishna based on the mood which you develop at this stage of a purified. It's not completely purified, because completely purified you're at Prema, but almost pure. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya, as the Bhagavatam says. So you're quite pure and your hearing is very steady, and you hear specific pastimes according to your mood, and you also generally hear all other philosophy of the Krishna consciousness. But at this steady hearing, you can understand the subject, you can summarize the subject, you can remember what you have heard. So this hearing is steady hearing, where you enter now the Varana Dasha, the stage of acceptance, where you become attached to hearing Krishna Katha. And at the stage of Ruchi, we are in the Smaran Dasha. And the 5 stages also are there within here only. We go through this from Ruchi to Asakti, we go through all these stages as we have mentioned here. All these stages we go through. And then at Bhava, we attain, our spiritual Swarupa is revealed. What is our Swarupa? Based on the meditation, what we are doing here in hearing, attached to Krishna, and remembrance, what we have all inculcated in our practices. So we reach this Apana Dasha, where our Swarupa is revealed, and Krishna also reveals himself to us. And what is our relationship or rasa? We are relishing that rasa, spiritual rasa, at the stage of Bhava, and Sampati is Prema. So these are some additional points with respect to this 5 stages of remembrance and how they are connected to the 9 stages of Bhakti. We also saw from Ragvartma Chandrika text 10 about Smaran. We quite elaborately discussed. Now in the last week, we had discussed this verse. Today we will begin our discussion. Sevaka sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vraja loka anusrata. So this was a second Raganuga practice, the second verse which is discussing quite in detail about Raganuga practice. So I'll just briefly touch upon it and start going more in detail about this second, verse which speaks about Raganuga Bhakti. Jiva Goswami says, Sadhak Rupa refers to the physical body, Rupa refers to the body which is suitable for one's desired service in the spiritual world. We start meditating. And it is developed how? By internal meditation. This internal meditation refers to those, 5 stages of meditation, and within Smaran there is first sub 5 stages. So all that slowly we develop the internal body. The Siddh Rupa is given by a guru on the path of Raga Bhakti when he sees the qualification for Raganu Bhakti and the particular inclination in a disciple. So Vishwanath Chakra Thakur goes on to elaborate more in detail, which we saw in the last class, that it can be given by the guru. The guru can, seeing the qualification, that is having qualification for Rag Bhakti, he is on the stage of Nishtha, he gives an indication of his spiritual form, or he himself, by his purity, the Lord as a super soul slowly indicates what mood, he is inclined to, and that mood he is attached to that kind of devotees in Vraj. It can be Vatsalya, Sakya, or Madhurya. Theoretically, this would be a form of an associate of one of the prominent devotees in Vraj with a specific rasa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, or Madhurya. Along with the form, specific dress and service for Krishna throughout the day would be given. Now, this is very exalted topics. We will not be discussing. Every spiritual form has a name, spiritual name in the spiritual world. So all these are and the service what you have in the spiritual world, all this is part of the internal meditation which Raganuga Bhakta at the elevated stages of Smaran is doing. So that slowly happens on its own with the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and with the heart being purified. Now, Jiva Goswami says, our forms of manjaris, assistants to the Sakis of Radha, seem to be the most prominent forms given. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give us Unnata Ujjvala Ras, the topmost ras, that is Madhuri Ras, and that too following in the Manjari Bhav, it is called. The Manjaris are the assistant to the Sakis. The Sakis are the close friends of Srimati Radharani, like the Ashta Sakis, and they are assisted by the Manjaris who are still younger in age, and they serve as, servants of Srimati Radharani. So this, is the form which is prominent. That's what Jiva Goswami says. Now, the details are given in works by Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyan Chandra Goswami, and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. So we will not go again into these details. And there are these 2 paths which are called the Antapatha and Bahirpatha. The Antapatha is the internal path where internally, just by meditation and purification of the heart, which Raghunath Das Goswami has given in his Manashiksha, that is the path which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada recommends, because that path is very, very safe path by which one can attain perfection. The other path is called as the Bhaya path, which was given to Gopal Guru Goswami and later to his disciple, and this is more on meditation, on while doing deity service with certain mantras. Systematic meditation paddhati is there, and this path is more or less corrupt, and that is why this path is not recommended. This is called as the Bhaya path. There are some technical difference between these 2 paths. We will not go into that again. It's a very vast subject, but suffice here to understand that the Antapath, the internal path of purification, is the purification of the anarthas, very, very subtle, fine anarthas, by, the Manashiksha teachings of Raghunath Das Goswami. And as our purification happens and we go deeper and deeper into our internal meditation, slowly, the details automatically, the holy name itself reveals everything. One serves with a desire for a particular bhava or rati of an associate of Krishna situated in Braj. Tad bhava lipsuna. Lipsuna means desire. Oh, I also want to attain that mood in which the gopi serve or in which Krishna's friend serves. So with that particular bhav and mood, one desires, so that is tad bhava lipsuna. One should follow the footsteps of the dear associates of Vraja Loka, and others loyal to him. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur also practically mentions the same, which we saw in the purport. Now, today, we will discuss in more detail about this verse, again from Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, chapter 12, Spontaneous Devotional Service in Practice, part 2, specifically this verse 195. So Shivram Swami Maharaj has given more details about what is this Siddha Deha and Sadhaka Deha. We have to have a clear understanding of this, and Shivram Swami Maharaj has quite elaborately discussed in his work Shuddha Bhakta Chintamani. So let us discuss this now. Our analysis begins with the second verse, which describes the two aspects of devotional service in practice. The second verse is the second verse of practice of Raganu Bhakti, which we read, Sevaka Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Dehana, that verse. It has two aspects. Sevaka Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tad Bhava Lipsuna Karya Vraja Loka Anusarta. So Seva Sadhaka Rupena. Sadhaka Rupena means it has two aspects. Sadhaka means it is the spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage. And Siddha Rupena is in the stage of Sadhya, where one is a Siddha Purush or a spiritually perfected soul. So there is something called as Sadhaka Sharir and Siddha Sharir. So there are these two aspects. There are two important terms in this verse. Each has been defined by Srila Prabhupada in his word-for-word synonyms to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. They are Sadhaka Rupena. So what is the Sadhaka Rupena? With the external body as a devotee practicing regulative devotional service. So a Raganuga Bhakta, external with his body, he practices all the limbs of regulative devotional service. That means Vaidhi Bhakti. And Siddha Rupena, Prabhupada says, with a body suitable for eternal self-realized service. So this is how Srila Prabhupada explains the Suddha Rupena. Krishna's eternally liberated companions simultaneously exist in two forms. Now, Krishna's eternal associates also exist in two forms. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, they appear as Vaishnavas practicing regulative devotion, sadhakas. And in Krishna's pastimes, as spontaneous associates, siddhas. So in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, all the gopis in Vrindavan also appeared in male forms as associates of Krishna, or associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Chaitanya pastimes, they appeared as Vaishnavas, as sadhakas to show us the practices path. Of course, they are not sadhakas, although they are appearing in this sadhaka sharir to show us, but they are siddhas. Rupa Goswami is from the eternal world, spiritual world. So, but they have these two, forms. One is sadhaka and siddha form. Krishna's pastimes are siddha forms. In Lord Chaitanya's Leela, it is sadhaka forms. Raganuga Bhaktas who have attained the stage of ecstatic devotion also have two identities. So the Raganuga Bhaktas also have these two identities. What is that? Externally, they practice as regulative devotees, and internally, they cultivate their newly manifested spiritual bodies, Siddha Deha. So one point here very clearly we should understand is at the stage of Nishtha, when greed also manifests for Raga Bhakti, one is a self-realized soul. This is very important for us to understand. He has the qualities of a Sthita Pragya, which is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 2.55 to 2.72. Sthita Pragya. Sthita Pragya means a self-realized soul. Now he understands that he is, transcendental to the body and he is Atma. And this now soul is now inclined for a particular mood of service following the Vrajvasis. So this, Siddha Deha slowly is developed under the guidance of the spiritual master. This is how we should understand what is the Siddha Deha. Now, it's very difficult in our conditioned state to understand this Siddha Deha. But let me give an example. It is a mundane example, but it is, appropriate or apt to understand. When the husband impregnates the wife, the spiritual seed actually is impregnated in the womb. And slowly, because this seed is there, slowly body starts developing in the womb of the mother. First few days, it is in the form of emulsifications, but after very few days, it forms into a kind of a pea seed. And then slowly it starts growing. And then after a few months, the limbs also form within. And at seventh month, the consciousness, you know, in the child is there and he can feel the trouble. And after 9 months, you know, now because of these modern instruments, we can, internally find out whether it is a girl or a boy. But after 9 months, when the child is delivered, then the linga, whether it is Purush or a Stri, we know. So I'm just giving this example similarly to understand what is this Siddhadeya. Siddhadeya means we are self-realized at the stage of Nishtha and we have developed a particular mood. And this now is in a seed form, just like the father impregnates the mother, the seed, the spiritual spark, Atma is there, and that's why the emulsification slowly form the body. And because the spirit is present, the body starts growing. Similarly, uh, at the stage of Nishtha, when one is self-realized, slowly the spiritual body starts getting developed. It slowly starts getting developed with higher stages of Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, and the internal remembrance. So our spiritual body also starts getting developed, just like the material body develops in the womb of a mother. Realization of their spiritual identity matures as they approach prema. So as the mother is about to deliver the child, maybe we can sense sometimes, whether it is a girl or a boy, or when she delivers, then so it matures as we approach prema through the systematic cultivation of transcendental devotion and remembrance, maranam, those 5 stages. In contrast, devotees not on the transcendental platform have no conception of their spiritual form and cannot artificially conceive of one. We just can't imagine that maybe this is my spiritual form. This will be all, completely bogus. So we should not do that. For such devotees, following the activities of a Vrajvasi means thinking and praising the service of a particular Vrajvasi. So this is what means, Anusrita. Anusrita means to follow the Vrajvasis. So we have special appreciation for particular devotees of Vraj who do particular seva, particular service to Radha and Krishna. At most, devotees at this stage can aspire for a certain role in Krishna's pastimes. They cannot, however, enter the pastimes through their meditations. So they aspire, oh, I also have this mood. I also want to serve Krishna in this mood. So that is a kind of an aspiration. As Srila Prabhupada used in his Nectar of Devotion summary study commentary, ambition. that kind of an ambition. But they cannot enter into the pastimes through their meditation, because slowly, I told you, this meditation progresses slowly, just like the seed is there of the soul in the womb of the mother, and slowly the body is growing. It takes time, 9 months. The dangers of imagining one spiritual form, Siddha Deha, cannot be overstated. Therefore, we shall discuss this topic in depth in chapter 28. So, Maharaj has discussed about this, trying to imagine with the material mind, some, form. Oh, I'm having this form, or somebody, especially in Vrindavan, there are many so-called cults which are not bona fide, and these are Radhakund Babajis who say that they will give the mantras and they will give you the Siddha Deha form, and they give it to devotees or so-called devotees who are not qualified, who are impure in their heart, and this can cause devastation or havoc in the path of pure Ragamarg. So it is a separate topic. Again, we will not discuss this topic more in detail because it is an entire chapter devoted, and there are many other discussions also. But here in this discussion of exploring Raganuga Bhakti, I am only briefly mentioning about this Siddha Dheya. Spiritual life is a matter of revelation, something that comes gradually through prolonged, unceasing effort. So even the stages from Shravana Dasha to Varan Dasha is many years of systematic, chaste hearing and service to spiritual masters, service to Vaishnavas, and chanting of the holy names by which the purification of the heart is happening. And then later on, this Smaran, which is one of the main limbs of Raganu Bhakti, after meditation for many years like this, slowly we progress. It's not a overnight affair of 15 days or 1 month. No, it is many years of internal meditation that these stages we progress. Such effort must be made in line with authorized disciplinic succession. So this is more important. If bhava has not awakened in a devotee, neither has awareness of his or her spiritual form. So from that 5 stages of meditation, which we're saying, Shravan Dasha, Apan Dasha, and Smaran Dasha, and within Smaran Dasha, these 5 sub-stages, we progressively go up, and then we attain what is, uh, uh, Apana Dasha. Apana Dasha is at the stage of Bhava where our spiritual form is revealed. So Bhava cannot be, if Bhava has not awakened in devotee, neither is awareness of his spiritual. If Bhava doesn't appear, then the spiritual form is also, we cannot be aware of it. That's why we have to reach the stage of Bhava where our spiritual form is revealed. It is revealed by the grace of Krishna and Guru. In fact, Krishna's spiritual energy, which is called as Ladini Shakti from the spiritual world, descends into the heart of such a purified soul, and Ladini and Samvit Shakti together, Krishna manifests his spiritual form. So it is not a matter that, it is imagined. No, it is a matter of revelation, which happens both by the efforts of Guru and Krishna. Here is a nice example to illustrate this point. Sorry, I did not read the. Imagining a spiritual form can never invoke love for Krishna. Rather, because such an artificial attempt is offensive to devotion, it further covers a person's dormant prema. So this artificially imagining a form, will not awaken bhava, love of Godhead. Rather, it will have counter effects. Here is a nice example to illustrate this point. So there is a very interesting example which Shivram Swami Maharaj gives. Once a pseudo devotee took up residence near Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and to impress visiting pilgrimages, loudly imitated the sounds of a person in ecstasy. Babaji Maharaj told the man, just as a barren woman cannot give birth by imitating the sounds of labor, you cannot bring forth pure love for Krishna by imitating the sounds of ecstasy. In other words, no amount of imagination can cause the fruit of perfection to ripen. Only Krishna's mercy can do that. And Krishna's mercy descends at the stage of bhava. Devotees must make themselves fit for Krishna's mercy by service and surrender if they wish to receive knowledge of their spiritual identity. Certain pseudo Vaishnavas interpret the verse under discussion. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena, it was mentioned. No? So some pseudo Vaishnavas, they interpret under discussion to mean that the sadhaka should follow the activities of Vrajvasis externally as well as internally. So the actual meaning is externally he should follow the rules and regulations of a Vaidhi Bhakta, and internally he should meditate uh, on the Vrajvasis and the service which he wants to emulate. But some interpret that no, externally also we should imitate the Vrajvasis. So this is a wrong interpretation. For example, a man will dress like a gopi and feign the voice and mannerism of a young girl, thinking his activities to be sadhana. Nothing more need to be said of such a sham in the name of devotion. So I was explaining about this IPS officer in Orissa, PK Panda. I think it is there in the internet. If you check 2010, he was in the news for at least a month or so. He started, he was a IPS officer. You can imagine holding such a huge post. And suddenly overnight, he felt that, I have attained bhava. And I am what? I can't even, I don't want to take the name also, I am such, so such imitation. And he started wearing earrings. He started wearing a dress of a female. So all this is, very much degraded practices. And during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, there were such 13 Apasampradayas who had completely, misinterpreted the pure teachings of Mahaprabhu, and the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya was lost, in fact. Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur fought vigorously and re-established the pure teachings of Mahaprabhu. So even today, if you go to Jagannath Puri or in Vrindavan, you can see sometimes, these upper sampradayas who, the men dressing like female and trying to, imitate these activities. So this is completely degraded, and it will not lead to perfection. In fact, it will lead to degradation and hellish life. Other devotee Vaishnavas remain in the dress of practitioners but neglect the sacred activities of sadhana bhakti. So there are many such pseudo Vaishnavas you can see here. During Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's time, a disciple of Hemalata Thakurani, Rup Kaviraj, propagated this deviation. So there is one deviation which happened during Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's time. What was the deviation? He reasoned that gopis did not accept spiritual masters, observe Ekadasi, or worship either Shaligram Shila or Tulsi Devi. It was not necessary for sadhakas to do so. So, sadhak rupena, we should do all the regulative principles of devotion service, like following Ekadasi, worship of Tulsi, chanting. So here, this Rup Kaviraj, he reasoned, oh, the eternal associates, the gopis of Vrindavan, they don't follow Ekadasi, they don't worship Shaligram Shila, they don't accept a spiritual master. So we'll also imitate the activities of gopi. So this is another deviation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur denounced this divergence from the truth and drove Rup Kaviraj out of Raj. He defeated him also spiritually in his arguments, and his arguments are there in even Bhagavatam commentaries also. In the Bhagavatam commentaries also, he has mentioned these arguments in the Kapil Shiksha. Sometime later, Rup Kaviraj left his body suffering from leprosy. So this is the result of Vaishnav Aparadh, deviation. Srila Prabhupada writes about another kind of deviation in which unqualified So at the time of initiation only, these, I was telling these Radhakund Babajis, they, what is called the Siddha Pranali. The Siddha Pranali process is followed by a class of men who are very not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. Oh, I will give you initiation, I'll give you your form, what is there in the spiritual world. What you're going to do with your form? You're struggling here with your body and senses, and your heart is completely unpure. You can't even do smaran. So all this leads to a lot of deviations. So this Siddha Pranali is another bogus process, which was there during Bhakti Siddhanta Sarita time and Prabhupada's time also, and they fought vigorously against it. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves like that. So this is all mental speculation and imagination. This external behavior is not at all according to regulative principles. In the opinion of Rupa Goswami, such activities are simply disturbance to the standard way of devotional service. So this is how Prabhupada writes in his chapter 16 about Raganuga Bhakti. Shruti Smriti Puran Pancharatrim Vidhi Aikantika Harer Bhaktir Utpat Eva Kalpate. If we don't practice Hari Bhakti based on the Shrutis, Smritis and the Purans and the Pancharatra, if we don't follow these Shastras and we start practicing Bhakti, then Utpat, it will simply create disturbance in the society. What is the proper meditation then for a sincere devotee who has not yet reached the dawn of perfection, but who is at the stage of spontaneous practice? The bona fide meditation is to remember the activities of Rajvasi to whom one has become attracted. So just remember their activities, wonderful activities. For example, devotees attracted to the service of cowherd boy Sridhama may meditate on Sridhama's beautiful features, how he jokes and plays with Krishna, how he tends cows during the day, and so on. So these are bona fide meditations. Devotees attracted to the service of Rupa Manjari. Rupa Manjari is Rupa Goswami. The Siddha Rupa of Rupa Goswami may meditate on how Rupa Manjari accompanies Srimati Radharani to her meetings with Krishna, how she annotates the divine couple with sandalwood paste and how she fans them with a whisk. So these are bona fide meditations. A question sometimes arises on this subject. How do devotees know which Vrajvasi to follow? How am I to know which Vrajvasi I should follow, whether I should follow Sridhama or, Rupa Manjari? The truth is that devotees qualified to cultivate such a relationship would not ask this question, because it is with the purification of the heart at Nishtha that greed develops to follow the Vrajvasis, and your mood also, is revealed. So nobody is going to ask such a question in one sense. The devotee's original relationship with Krishna is dormant within them. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Kabu Sadhyanai, Shravanada Shuddha Chitta, Koraya Uday. With the Shravan, with the chanting and the hearing process, when the Chitta becomes pure, it is Uday, it becomes manifest. It is not something that is whimsically adopted. So very systematically, Shivram Swami Maharaj is explaining one point after another, and that is why I am taking up this discussion. A natural and a special appreciation for the pastimes of Krishna awakens in qualified devotees as they hear Srimad Bhagavatam and chant Hare Krishna. So those who are on the Ragmarg, they are more attracted to hearing the pastimes of Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they are more absorbed in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They chant with intense absorption and with steadiness, with full concentration, which is only possible after the stage of Nishtha. In the Anishtita Bhajan Kriya, before Nishtha, when Anarth Nivritti has not yet happened, one cannot concentrate on the holy name. One is disturbed easily, and one is not able to taste, Nama Ruchi is not there because of anarthas. But one who is cross Nishtha, he has this natural mood and appreciation for the pastimes of Krishna as he chants Hare Krishna. By continuously hearing and chanting, a devotee is naturally drawn to a particular mood of service and to a particular Vrajvasi. So this all happens naturally, internally. This slowly happens. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada writes, special natural appreciation of the descriptions of a particular pastime of Godhead indicates the constitutional position of the living entity. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela. So special natural appreciation. Now this happens with a purified heart, and we have that natural appreciation during that time. Anyone who has any questions can always raise their hand and ask as we are discussing these points. Externally, devotees in spontaneous service follow the teachings and example of the sadhaka forms of the eternal residents of Vraj. So the sadhaka forms of the eternal residents of Vraj are the six Goswamis. Gaudiya Vaishnavas follow the example of Rupa Goswami, the sadhaka form of Rupa Manjari. So externally, they try to follow Rupa Goswami by reading Rupa Goswami's work like Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Updeshamrit, and they visit Vrindavan, special places where Rupa Goswami used to perform his bhajan. There is the place called as Ter Kadam. Ter Kadam is a place very close to Nandagram, and Rupa Goswami used to do his bhajan there. That is the place where Krishna, after doing the cowherding pastimes, he stands there, and all the cows, he chants their names. Each of the groups of cows, these are called as Yutha, he takes his mala and takes one name. Oh, Dhavali, Dhavali. When Dhavali hears this, entire group of Dhavali cows, they come running to Krishna. So this is the place called as Ter Kadam, and Rup Goswami is to sit and do his bhajan there. So Gaudiya Vaishnavas who are qualified for Raganu Bhakti, they always meditate, oh, how Rup Goswami is to sit and do his bhajan there, how Rup Goswami in Radha Damodar was doing his bhajan and writing the books. They would like to study the life of Rup Goswami, like Rup Shiksha in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are the external activities which we do is to externally follow the sadhaka forms of Rupa Goswami and that is what a devotee does. Thus they are known as Rupanugas because we follow Rupa Goswami. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Rupa Goswami's character, literary achievements, dedication to Lord Chaitanya, and excavation of many of Krishna's pastimes places. So they are more attracted to what was the activities Rupa Goswami did in his sadhaka sharir in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and they read these pastimes, especially Rup Shiksha is there in the 19th chapter, which is very, very important. Rup Shiksha is nectar of devotion, in fact. So we should repeatedly study, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. There is a beautiful verse glorifying Rupa Goswami. Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe, Prema Swarupe, Sahajabirupe, Nijanurupe, Prabhure Karupe, Tatan Swarupe, Swavilasarupe. So this is how Kavi Karnpurn has glorified Rupa Goswami. Priya Swarupe. Rupa Goswami was very, very dear to Swarup Damodar. Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe. Daita means very loving, dear associate. Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe, Prema Swarupe. He was the personified form of Prema. Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also was Radha Dhuti Bhava Lalitam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the personification of the love for Srimati Radharani. Similarly was Rupa Goswami. Sahaja Abhirupe. And naturally he was very beautiful. Rupa Goswami was very beautiful to look. And the real beauty is when the heart possesses love for Krishna. That is real beauty of the soul. And Tatan Swarupe Swavilasarupe. Tatan Swarupe means he composed wonderful literatures and he excavated the holy pastimes of Radha Krishna's pastimes. So this kind of characteristics of Rupa Goswami one glorifies, and one studies Rup Shiksha like this. Okay, there is one question. Let me hear this question. For us to be inspired by mood of service of a particular Vrajvasi, we need to constantly hear about them, isn't it? How does one cultivate this habit and find resources of information of all such exalted devotees? Now, apologies, some issue in system, unable to raise hand to ask. Okay, that's okay. Now, before we discuss of developing a particular mood of service of a Vrajvasi and constantly hearing about them, you know, and trying to get that information, most important what we should do as Vaidhi sadhakas is that we need not develop any mood right now. We absolutely need not develop any mood. We should be inclined to practice Vaidhi sadhana bhakti meticulously, trying to absorb in hearing and chanting, especially Bhagavad Gita, Updeshamrit, Nectar of Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrit. These are our core books. So we should do our sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti very meticulously, and we should study these bhakti literatures so that we can improve our sadhana. The mood, special mood, comes only after the stage of Nishtha. Just like Shivaram Swami Maharaj saying, nobody will ask, whom to follow. Those devotees, no devotee who is at the level of Ragana Bhakti will ask, because that mood with the purification of the heart automatically happens. So there is no question of doing this right now for us who are Vaidhi sadhakas. It is an internal meditation, it is confidential, and it is discussed between the disciple and the spiritual master, or the disciple and a Rasika Bhakta whom we are hearing and understanding these subjects. In general, devotees also ask me, the subject matter of Ragana Bhakti is so sacred and so wonderful, and Mahaprabhu has come to give us. So, what are the specific books about Ragana Bhakti we should study? In fact, we should regularly, year after year, study Updeshamrita and Nectar of Devotion and try to understand these books. We should systematically study Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also. And we should hear, from elevated sannyasis, Krishna's pastimes, which they narrate, because they are, pure devotees. And when they narrate, we should try to absorb in hearing Krishna Katha and understanding Krishna Katha. In fact, when we hear Krishna's pastimes also, no, because our heart is not pure, we'll analyze these pastimes and we have so many questions. But one who is at the prema stage, he is simply, he's simply relishing these pastimes, these leelas. To give an example, a mundane example in this context, the mother loves the child. She cannot analyze the child because she has natural love and affection for the child. So, now I should, love the child like this or like that. There is no analysis done. But when we are studying the Shastra, there is application of intelligence there to understand Shastra. But as we are explaining, Raga Bhakti doesn't work on intelligence. It is based on the mood. So that is why we should hear, exalted sannyasis speak Krishna's pastimes, and we should do this as a sadhana of hearing regularly Krishna's pastimes, reading systematically from Canto 1 of Bhagavatam to Canto 12, and maybe again reading like this for many years. And slowly, with the purification of the heart, when Anarth Nivritti has happened, automatically this mood will develop. And which books to read also specifically, the spiritual masters will guide, and Krishna also internally will guide us. So as sadhakas, few things we have to do: practice meticulously Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the rules and regulations. Uh, Read Bhakti Shastri literatures like Updeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrit. And we should hear these pastimes of Krishna from exalted devotees. Regularly read the Bhagavatam from the beginning to the end. And slowly, with this purification, when you pass out from Vaidhi Bhakti, you will enter Ragana Bhakti automatically, and then everything will be slowly, slowly revealed with the purification of the heart. Is that satisfactory to you, Prem? Okay, fine. Is there any other question? Oh, who is Swarup Damodar? Interesting question. Swarup Damodar is the constant associate and the secretary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There were two devotees who were always constantly there with Mahaprabhu in his, Jagannath Puri pastimes the last 24 years. Ramanand Rai and Swarup Damodar. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Just like Srimati Radharani was feeling the pangs of separation when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura and later to Dwarka, and she was in deep spiritual lamentation, feeling separation from Krishna. It is Lalita and Vishaka who were the constant associates of Srimati Radharani. Similarly, Mahaprabhu experienced the same emotions of Srimati Radharani's separation from Krishna as Mahaprabhu was experiencing in Gambhira. And Mahaprabhu is to go in deep, deep internal consciousness, and he used to feel these pangs of separation as Srimati Radharani felt for Krishna. And Ramanand Rai and Swarup Damodar were his associates who used to, assist Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by singing wonderful songs according to his mood and reciting the various poems of Chandidas, Jayadev Goswami, and all. So Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai were the associates. Samut Damodar was especially the secretary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this Raga Bhakti, he gave it in the hands of Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar later on taught this to Raghunath Das Goswami, who stayed many years in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And that is called as the Antapata. Antapata means the internal path, which, with the purification of the heart, Raghunath Das Goswami in his teachings is explaining how to purify the heart. And with this purification, automatically, we internally go into meditation through these 5 stages of Smaranam, Dashas, and we attain perfection. Swarup Damodar also taught another path which is called as Bhaya path, the external path, to Vakreshwar Pandit. Vakreshwar Pandit gave it to his disciple Gopal Guru Goswami, which we saw in the commentary. And Gopal Guru Goswami gave it to his disciple Dhyan Chandra Goswami. And Dhyan Chandra Goswami wrote books, on how to do the external meditations. Of course, the external meditations are because of the internal purification and the mood. But the external path, what was given the external meditations, is easily imitable, But the internal path given to Raghunath Das Goswami, you cannot imitate, because it is based on the purification of the heart. And this, there is no chance you can imitate. That's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur recommends, and Srila Prabhupada recommend the internal path, which is given to Raghunath Das Goswami, and we follow that path. Is it clear? Prashant Shanbhag Prabhuji, is it clear?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Any other questions we have here? Okay. So let us go in more detail about Siddha and Sadhaka Deha. which Shivaram Swami Maharaj is discussing. So we meditate on Rupa Goswami's character, his achievements, his shiksha, which is there in Chaitanya. This is, in the Sadhaka Deha, we follow Rupa Goswami. Devotees should meditate on and emulate the traits and services of Rupa Goswami by understanding the heart of his mission and then trying to assist him in spreading Krishna consciousness. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. So this is there in the book called as Prema Bhakti Chandrika, written by Narottam Das Thakur in the Mangala Charan second verse. So actually Rupa Goswami has established Mahaprabhu's mission in this universe, in this, Bhutale. And we are just trying to preach the message of Rupa Goswami. So we should become humble servants. And Srila Prabhupada brings out this very much in his Nectar of Devotion purport. I would like to go through it because it is very important for us to understand how Srila Prabhupada is speaking here, that we should be humble and understand and just try to assist Rupa Goswami in his mission. So here I am not able to. Okay. This is the attitude of the preacher. Srila Prabhupada mentions Nectar of Devotion in the introduction. It is there. Now, here. The author of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami, very humbly submits that he is just trying to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, although he humbly thinks himself unfit for this work. That should be the attitude of all preachers of the Krishna conscious movement, following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. We should never think of ourselves as great preachers, but we should always consider that we are simply instrumental to the previous acharyas, and simply by following in their footsteps, we may able to do something for the benefit of suffering humanity. So this should be our mood. It is, Rupa Goswami who has established. It is Rupa's teachings we are taking, and we should not be proud about it. We should have a very humble attitude. That is what Srila Prabhupada explains in the introduction to, his summary study. And I felt it is very important that we understand this point. Members of ISKCON accept that Srila Prabhupada is also an eternal resident of Vrindavan. And his example is even more relevant to us. Srila Prabhupada is an eternal Brajvasi from the spiritual world who had come here to again establish the teachings of Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada for us is so dear because it is only Srila Prabhupada who established the teachings of Rupa Goswami all over the world by preaching his teachings. And what a humble attitude Srila Prabhupada had, and he's expressing that attitude even in his Nectar of Devotion, book. So Srila Prabhupada, we know that he resided in Radha Damodar from 1959 to 1965 before he left to America. And, from his kitchen, he could always see Rupa Goswami's Samadhi and the Bhajan Kuti. And we are, in one sense, Prabhupada Nugas, followers of Srila Prabhupada. So for us, it is also wise to meditate on Srila Prabhupada. To be a member of ISKCON means to be absorbed in Prabhupada's personal qualities, compassion, preaching spirit, unparalleled achievements, and literary masterpieces. So we should be also absorbing in Prabhupada's wonderful qualities of compassion. What a preaching spirit Srila Prabhupada had at the age of 71 to begin a movement, a worldwide movement, at the age of 70, And what is his achievements? 108 temples, 60 works in English language with the Bhagavatam commentary and the Chaitanya Charitamrita commentary. What a work it was. And the world has still not understood the glories of Srila Prabhupada. It is only because of us, because we are not able to spread, Prabhupada's teachings and reach it to the masses. What a glory, Srila Prabhupada, no one till now in the history great messengers of God have come, like Jesus and, even Muhammad, but nobody has preached like what Prabhupada has done in the last few thousand years. So Prabhupada's glory is wonderful. Srila Prabhupada's disciples have written many books to help devotees absorb their minds in Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada himself left an ocean of instruction in his writings, lectures, conversations, and correspondence. So all these are also a meditation uh, for us on Prabhupada. His followers may hear their instructions to remain fully connected to him and in order to cultivate their desire to follow in his footsteps. In this way, ISKCON members can practice remembering one of Lord Chaitanya's confidential associates, Rupa Goswami, and even the Acharyas Maharaj is explaining. The term sadhaka in the verse under discussions needs to be clarified. So, what is this sadhaka? It generally refers to devotees who are not yet completely mature, but who are trying to achieve perfection through devotional service in practice, sadhakas. In this verse, however, the meaning of sadhaka rupa should be understood in another sense in the context of Lord Chaitanya's mission. Lord Chaitanya and his associates like Rupa Goswami appear as practicing Vaishnavas in order to taste the bliss of service in separation. Moreover, the sadhaka forms of Lord Chaitanya's associates in this world are projection of their eternal identities in Shwetadeep portion of Golok. So, Lord Chaitanya's associates, uh, they are having in Krishna Lila forms as gopis, and in Gaur Lila, they have the form of males. So, this is how we should understand. In other words, both the sadhaka rupas and the siddha rupas of Lord Chaitanya's eternal companions are perfected forms. So Rupa Goswami is not a sadhaka, he is a perfected personality, even though he is here in a male form. And in his spiritual form, in the spiritual world as a Rupa Manjari, he is having a pure spiritual form. But even when he is participating in Chaitanya's Leelas as Rupa Goswami, though we as sadhakas, Raganuga practitioners, meditate on Rupa Goswami, sadhaka sharira, but he is not having a sadhaka sharir. They are siddhas only. They are having perfected forms that represent two different moods of devotion. One of aspiration for perfection and other of engagement in perfection. So there are two moods. Rupa Goswami is, we see his pastimes that, he was uh, working under a Nawab and he met Mahaprabhu. And then later on, Mahaprabhu took them as his disciples and gave the title Goswami, and then he moved to Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu instructed him, maybe, they are all perfected beings, Rupa Goswami. They don't need any instructions because they are eternally serving Radha Krishna in the spiritual world as Rupa Manjari. But they seem to be going through sadhana stage, but they are, they are aspiring for perfection. And then there is a engagement for perfection. Both are perfect. So this is what we should understand. Both are perfect. The term Siddha Rupa, when used, for example, to refer to Rupa Manjari, does not imply that Rupa Goswami's sadhaka form is imperfect and temporary. No, his sadhaka form is also perfect and it is completely spiritual and eternal. This we should understand. The eternal companions of Lord Chaitanya are fully mature in devotion and their forms are perfect and eternal, as are those of their counterparts in Vraj. So in Vraj, they have these female forms of Manjaris, but in Gaur Lila, they have male forms in the form of Rupa Goswami. Both these forms are perfect, pure, and eternal. Rupa Goswami says that the second external aspect of spontaneous service in practice is the performance of regulative devotional activities. So that is about, the next verse. the third verse, which we will be discussing, which speaks about what does a sadhaka bhakta, Raganuga bhakta, what kind of practices he does. This will be in the next verse. Now, since now, till now, what we have discussed, you have any other questions, clarifications? Any questions regarding this sadhaka deha and siddha deha? We have gone quite briefly about this topic. In fact, I did not want to elaborate more because it's a very vast subject and it will take us 1 or 2 classes. But I thought for us, it is apt to understand these terms, what it means, sadhaka deha and siddha deha. Now, I would like to give a little practical example of how exactly a Raganuga Bhakta practices in a sadhaka deha and a siddha deha. I'll give the example of the eternal associates of Mahaprabhu, 2 eternal associates. One is Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur again is from the spiritual world. In his Gopi form, he has got a Krishna Lila. In Krishna Lila, he's got a Gopi form. I don't exactly remember his spiritual name, Manjari name. And in this world, he had appeared as Narottam Das Thakur. And he's a perfected being, but although, in the past times, he attains love of Godhead in that Padmavati river, and he has attraction for Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he goes to Vrindavan, and Mahaprabhu directly, instructs him in his dream that go and take shelter of Loknath Goswami. Now, Loknath Goswami is also an eternal associate of the Lord in the spiritual world in Krishna Lila. He's also Manjari, and he in Gaur Lila had come during Mahaprabhu's time. In fact, he was quite senior, Loknath Swami. And yeah, I'm not able to recollect. No, sorry, it is not Loknath Goswami who was there during Mahaprabhu's time. So Loknath Swami was told by Mahaprabhu that Narottam Das Thakur is coming to Vrindavan and you please initiate him. So the both of them met, and Narottam Das Thakur requested Loknath Goswami to initiate him. But Loknath Goswami said, no, I will see and test you whether you are a fit disciple for initiation. So 1 year, Narottam Das Thakur was tested by his spiritual master Loknath Goswami. And Narottam Das Thakur did very menial service. He took up to the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In fact, it is said that he was chanting 2 lakh names of the holy names. And seeing his sincerity, especially that service, what he was doing for his spiritual master, early morning, the area where his spiritual master was to answer nature call, he used to clean that area, keep the lota, and do this menial service. And Loknath Goswami did not know who was this personality who was doing. One day, very early in the morning, he came and he saw, and he was very impressed, and he decided to give him initiation. He gave him initiation. Now, it is mentioned that Narottam Das Thakur, when in his bhajan, internally he used to meditate, go deep in his bhajan, and in his spiritual form, in his Siddha Deha, his service was to boil milk in an iron pot. Now, there iron is not iron here as a dhatu, but there it is completely spiritual. And there is milk also, there is spiritual milk there, which the Surbi cows give. And to serve Radha and Krishna and all the, Sakis and the Gopis. So while he was boiling this milk, because the iron pot was hot, and he suddenly caught it. And in his meditation, while doing this chanting, he suddenly came out of his meditation and he saw actually his hands were burnt. And he felt a little embarrassed, and he had to tie some cloth on the hand and apply some herbs. And next day morning, his spiritual master met him, and he also saw, oh look, Narottam, what has happened to your hand? So he felt quite ashamed and he did not speak anything. But Loknath Goswami is again an eternal associate. So he told that, oh, yesterday in your meditation, in your spiritual body, you were doing this service and you caught the iron pot and it was hot. So that's how you burnt your hands. So Loknath Swami revealed Narottam Das Thakur's spiritual form, spiritual service. And Narottam Das Thakur himself is to meditate internally on his spiritual form and do services there in the spiritual world. So this is how exalted this path is of Raganuga Bhakti, where at the stage of Nishtha, there is greed, and then there is, smaranam, meditation based on the mood. There is meditation on the associates of Krishna, and this meditation progresses from Shravan Dasha to Varan Dasha to, the Smaran Avastha, which has 5 stages, and the Apan Dasha. And in the Apan Dasha, the Swarupa is revealed by Lord Krishna. And then, he is in his sadhaka deha, practicing all the rules and regulations of bhakti as a sadhaka. And in his saddha deha, slowly he, internally can meditate. And this internal meditation goes progressively. First, there is just a general meditation and appreciation of the Vraj devotees. Then there is specific inclination to a particular devotee like Sridhama, as the example was there, his services, his qualities, and to emulate in his footsteps. And then the internal meditation can go still further, where we develop the spiritual body at the level of prema, and externally we are doing sadhana here in our sadhaka deha, and in our siddha deha we can perform services there in the spiritual world also. But that is very lofty and exalted at the stage of prema. It is how the progression goes on. So it's a very perfect process given by our acharyas, this path of raga bhakti, ultimately to attain the highest perfection, that is Krishna Prem. And how from the stage of nishtha to prema this happens is revealed systematically in the works of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu and all other scriptures, especially like Updeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Chaitanya Charitamrit also quite elaborately discusses, quite in detail, in fact. And there is also Shivram Swami Maharaj, who has quite elaborately discussed these topics. So this is the path of Raganuga Bhakti. Now the external, the third, limb of practice of Raganuga Sadhaka is very short. So I will discuss this and we will stop. कीर्तनादानि वैदि भक्ति उदितानि तो यानि अंगानि च तान्यत्र विज्ञेनानि मनीषिभिः. The discriminating practitioners, Vijnani Manishivi, should accept the angas tani to angani, which were mentioned in Vaidhi Bhakti. Yani Vaidhi Bhakti Uditani, such as hearing and chanting, Shravana, Utkirtana Adini, as the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. So which are the angas of Raganuga Bhakti? The same angas which are there in Vaidhi Bhakti, hearing and chanting. But in Raganuga Bhakti, the hearing and chanting is very deep, absorbing, and intense practice. Whereas in Vaidhi Bhakti, it is not so. Along with hearing and chanting, items such as surrendering to the lotus feet of Guru should be understood as favorable. So Vishwanath Chakra Thakur says that you have to take shelter of a Rasika, advanced Mahabhagavat, who is having anurag and who is expert, in this, and his guidance is always important. So the first step in Vaidhi Bhakti, or the first limb of Vaidhi Bhakti, was Ado Guru Pada Ashraya. And here in the higher stages of Raganuga Bhakti also, there is more intimate, relationship with the spiritual master, and more surrender to the spiritual master. So this process is not that, after a certain maturity, one need not have any guidance. No, more guidance is required, and it is very, very favorable. Without those favorable items, how can one accomplish following the eternal inhabitants of Raj? How is it possible? After considering with intelligence, One should select activities conducive to one's own sentiments of for Krishna, tat tad bhava, based on the mood, which mood, whether it is Sakyaras or Vatsalya or Madhurya. So with intelligence, again there is use of intelligence here. Oh, this bhav is specific, it is anukul for what mood I am practicing, and not those activities which are contrary to one's sentiments. So we will go into these details, what exactly these details are in the tomorrow's class. Though prescribed in the scriptures, activities of deity worship, such as worshipping Rukmini, because Rukmini is in Aishwarya Bhav, and Rag Bhakti is only with respect to Vrajvasis. So this is not recommended. Meditation of Dwarka, not recommended. Performing mudras and nyasyas. Mudras are, various symbols which are done in the deity worship. Or identifying oneself with the Lord. I am one with God. This is called as Angrupasana. I am God, Worshipping oneself should be rejected. So all these should be rejected. The scriptures also say that on the path of bhakti, there is no fault in omitting some of the procedures such as meditation on Rukmini. So scriptures say that you can omit some of the limbs also of bhakti in the path of Raganuga Bhakti. Now, where is the proof? The proof is there in the Uddhav Gita. Yanasthaya naro rajan na pramadeta karhichit dhavan nimileva netre na skale na patet iha. O king, this is Nimi, King Nimi, Navagandras are teaching. One who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yan Astaya Nara, will never blunder on this path, na pramadet karhichit, in this world, iha. Even while running with eyes closed, dhavan nimilva netre, he will never trip or fall. Na skalen, na patet, iha. Now, this verse has to be understood in the right context. So, here is the right context that a Raganuga Sadhana Bhakta, he is running with closed eyes, running with eyes closed. That means he neglects some of the limbs of bhakti which are unfavorable for his cultivation of rag bhakti. Just like here it was mentioned, worshipping and meditation of dharka, Mhm. He omits some of the procedures or the limbs of bhakti. And what is favorable for his mood, he takes up. What is unfavorable, he just jumps upon it, like closing the eyes. So this is the meaning of dhavan nimilva netre. It's not that, a Vaidhi sadhaka will neglect the limbs of Vaidhi sadhaka and attain perfection. No. Vaidhi sadhaka should meticulously follow all the rules and regulations of scripture, then only he can advance. But a Raganuga sadhaka will sometimes jump and cross over as though eyes are closed to some of the limbs which are not anukul for developing the mood in which he wants to worship Krishna. Especially these are all to be rejected only, worshipping Rukmini, because if you worship Rukmini, then you will attain a form in Dwarka. But Rag Bhakti is only in Vrindavan in relation to the eternal associates, that is the Ragatmika Bhaktas. There is another proof, no fault in omitting some procedures. Nahi angopakramay dvamsa madharmasyoddhavanyapi maya vyavastita samyan nirgunatvad anashisha. My dear Uddhav, Anga Uddhava, because I have personally established it, Maya Vyavastita Samyak, this process of devotional service unto me, Mad Dharmasya, is transcendental and free from any material motivation. Nirgunatvat anashisha. Certainly a devotee never suffers even the slightest loss. Na hi anu api dhamsa, by adopting this process. Mad dharmasya upakramane. So again, here we have to understand this verse in this context. Means, there is no loss for a Raganuga Bhakta if he omits some of the limbs, some of the procedures. Now, there is a slight discussion by Shivram Swami Maharaj. Few slides are there about what this verse means for, as a practice of Raganuga Bhakti? What is this third, practice which we saw? Oh, sorry, somewhere I got lost. It is here, this third 296 verse. So Shivram Swami Maharaj has few slides, or there are few slides which will finish our discussion, but it's almost time up now. And this few sessions I went a little elaborately because I felt it is important for us to really appreciate and understand what this Raga Bhakti is all about, and how exalted it is, and how important it is for us to understand what Mahaprabhu has come to give, what to speak about, bhava and prema, even Rag Bhakti, that lobe, how important it is that only lobe develops at the stage of Nishtha. So all these aspects have to be very clearly understood. So that's why I went quite in detail. And later on, we will be again going back to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and few verses in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are there with respect to Raganuga Bhakti, which we'll be discussing. And that will take at least another 3-4 classes, and we will be concluding our discussion on Raganuga Bhakti. So any questions, any clarifications you have up till now, what we discussed? Any questions? Okay, there is one question. Who was Rupa Goswami's spiritual master, Mahaprabhu or his brother Sanatan Goswami? Very nice question. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and all the 6 Goswamis were the direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And since Sanatan Goswami was the elder brother of Rupa Goswami always considered Sanatan Goswami as his spiritual master also. But that is, allowed. You can have one initiating spiritual master and many instructing spiritual masters. So this was the mood of Rupa Goswami. He accepted, because Sanatan Goswami was his elder brother, he accepted him as his spiritual master. On the other hand, also Sanatan Goswami also accepted Rupa Goswami as his spiritual master. So that was the mood among the Goswamis. But definitely they were direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 6 direct disciples who are called as the 6 Goswamis. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not conduct an yagya and an initiation ceremony to formally announce them as disciples. When they met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Ramkeli and they surrendered to him, and he said, "Now I accept you." That was initiation for them. So that is at a completely transcendental platform. And we have to go through these procedures of a formal initiation through, accepting the spiritual master, accepting the vows and the yagya, fire sacrifice, which is done. But the 6 Goswamis did not go through that. But it doesn't mean that they were not disciples of Mahaprabhu also. That also we should know. Is it okay, Prabhuji? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, there is one question. Virendra Yadav, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Guruji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, am I audible?
Yeah.
Prabhuji, my question is, Rupa Goswami in Chaitanya Leela, what was his mood? Like he's Rup Manjari in Golok Vrindavan. The transcendental rasa will be same for Rup Manjari, or what was the mood?
No, you have to be very clear about the question.
My question is, Prabhuji, what is the mood of Rupa Goswami in Chaitanya Leela?
In Chaitanya Leela. In Chaitanya Leela, right?
Yeah.
In Chaitanya Leela.
Yeah.
So, if you understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come in the mood of the best of the gopis, that is Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani, what is her mood of devotion, that is the same mood Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. and Srimati Radharani is close associates of the Sakis, and the Sakis are associated by assisted by the Manjiris, and Rup Manjari is the prominent, who is one of the leaders. So Rup Manjari, when she he or she, we should not say, Rup Manjari, when she comes in Chaitanya Lila, also what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is feeling, the moods of separation from Krishna, that rasa they are relishing, that same rasa also the associates, the eternal associates relish. And again, it depends on their form. If it is a female form in the spiritual world, they will relish the Madhurya rasa. And of course, for Rup Manjari, we know it is Manjari form, so it is Madhurya rasa. And it is, they relish here in separation from Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is relishing. So that is how we can understand it. As far as my intelligence goes, I feel this is how. And internally, they are relishing this mood of separation, and externally, Rup Goswami is doing activities in the form of writing literatures, excavating the holy places. Those are his external activities, but internally this mood of separation. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra, when Srimati Radharani is meeting Krishna at Kurukshetra, and what is Rath Yatra? That the gopis are pulling the chariot of Krishna from Kurukshetra back to Vrindavan. So Srimati Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna, and she wants to, meet Krishna in his Gopa Vesh, Vrindavan Vesh, and just like the lover and beloved are meeting after a long separation. So Mahaprabhu also in the Rath Yatra had this same mood of Srimati Radharani, and that's why he was singing some songs which seemed like love songs, and people could not understand when the Rath Yatra was happening. Only Sarup Damodar understood. But Rup Goswami also understood, and he also wrote that in the form of shlokas. This is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not understand, how did Rup, you understand my inner feelings of the heart, that I was feeling separation from Krishna. So the same feelings of separation from Krishna, the gopis feel, because he is in the Manjari form. It is also the same thing what he is feeling even in his pastimes in Chaitanya Leela. That is how we can understand. Is it okay, Prabhuji?
Understood. Thank you very much. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, there is one more question. Prashant Shanbag.
Hey Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, this gender classification is there at spiritual world also? Because I heard.
See, we have this duality because, we have male body and a female body, and the forms are different, structures are different, but the soul by nature is feminine. It is Prakriti. This we should ontologically understand. It is Prakriti, So, aparasto itam anyam prakritim vidyam me param jiva bhuta mahabhavo yedam dharete jagat. So, it is Prakriti, but it is Param. It is a superior Prakriti. So, the jivas are Prakriti, and the Lord is Purush. Purush is enjoyer, Prakriti is that which is enjoyed. So all the jivas are feminine in nature, in one sense. Now, when trying to understand spiritual realities, where in the spiritual world also there are male forms and female forms. The Gopas, the mother father of Krishna, Nand Maharaj, is in the male form. So but essentially they are spiritual bodies, and they are the soul. Of course, Nanda Maharaj is not he's not classified in the category of the souls only, in fact, but the others I'm explaining, like the Gopas and all. So they have male bodies, but their nature, essential spiritual nature, is that of feminine, in the sense that Krishna is the enjoyer, and my Swarupa is to give enjoyment to Krishna, whether it is in the male spiritual form there in the form of Gopas or in the spiritual form of the gopis. But here we have that distinction between, we make that distinction between the male body and the female body. But both the male body or the female body, both are, actually Prakritis only. They are, not masculine, they are feminine in one sense. Is it okay?
So, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Any other questions or clarifications? Okay. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we will have one more verse discussion on the practice of Ragana Bhakti, and then we'll come back to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Few verses of discussion about Raganuga Bhakti. There are two different divisions in Raganuga Bhakti, and then there are some scriptural references which Rupa Goswami gives, and then he ends the discussion on Raganuga Bhakti. So that we will take up tomorrow. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.